Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. And today I'm hanging out with John. I'm not even going to attempt your last name online.
Schindehette. It's easy.
Well, if you're a regular around here, you know, like a simple word stump me, let alone ones with lots of letters. So it's amazing that I'm actually a YouTube personality. I can barely speak.
It's okay. I have the same problem all the time.
So we came by way of each other through a mutual acquaintance, Bryan Stillman. Matter of fact, we were just kind of talking about him a little bit. He had made the introduction. You work over there at Think Geek. You've worked for Wizards of the Coast. You've actually have a long list of places that you worked and name brands you've worked with, all of which you guys can find in the description, as well as your website, your Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And you also have a project coming up soon. So a very long and eventful career, it sounds like.
Yes, it's been a fun one.
So, how did you start as an art director?
So I get a million questions like that all the time from aspiring art directors. Like, how did you get into the business? What degree did you get? This, that, and the other thing. And the truth was, it was a random bunch of events that just kind of all came together. I was in Dallas at the time working for a advertising studio, and I had started their multimedia department back in the days when they called internet and all that kind of stuff multimedia, which we don't anymore. But I had gotten a shout out from Wizards of the Coast at the time, saying, hey, we like what you do on the web. You do some great websites. Would you like to come up here and work for us and do, we're starting a website. We'd like to have you come do it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. What do you guys do? Because I didn't know anything about Wizards of the Coast at the time. And they're like, we do this game called Magic the Gathering. And I was like, checked it out. I was like, not really my thing. I'll pass. 6 months go by. I get a call again saying, hey, we still want you to come up here and do this thing. By the way, we just acquired TSR. I was like, wait, what? You know, because I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since high school. And we won't talk about what year of high school because that would date me really quickly. But I was a hardcore old time nerd for D&D, and I was like, okay, I'm in. They're like, do you want to know about the rest of the job? I was like, no, I'm in. You got D&D. I'm on board. So I actually started the same day all the guys came over from TSR. We all started together. So here I am going through orientation with Brahma one side of me and Todd Lockwood on the other side, and Jeff Easley and all these guys. And I was in nerd heaven because it was just like, this is amazing. So I started out being the art director for the website for Wizards of the Coast, and shortly thereafter they moved me over to marketing. So I did all the marketing for D&D and for Magic the Gathering, and then shortly after that they moved me over to working on straightly on D&D, just doing art director work there. And so that was kind of how I got there. Just happened to have the right nerd cred to throw down on the table at the right time and say, yeah, I want to play. And so moved from the advertising corporate world over to D&D, which is where I've been for, since '97. So it's been a nice ride.
Nice. And, it's always sweet when you can mix your passions with your actual occupation.
Yes, very much so.
So what was probably like the biggest moment you had working there? Like, especially being a fan and then fan of the game and then coming into it and being like, oh, wow, this is my job now.
I guess the biggest one was third edition, when Ryan Dancy, who was the brand manager at the time, said, okay, we'll be doing third edition, and we want the art guys to come up with something completely new, completely fresh. And so working with Don Murin and Sean on the visual side with the books, and then working with Todd Lockwood and Sam Woods on all the concepting for all the critters and the dragons and all that fun stuff, and just being knee deep in that whole development of third edition. That really was a dream come true for me. I mean, you don't get the opportunity to sit here and play D&D from the early days and then be thrust into the spot where somebody says, hey, here's a platter, fill it up with what your dream of D&D is and have some fun with it. And by the way, make sure you make every fan in the world happy, which is impossible to do, but it was a fun challenge. And, I guess that was my highlight of my career, to begin with right there. And then the scariest thing was just shortly thereafter when we went to the next Gen Con, and Bryan was like, we're going to pull you out front. You got to talk about the art. And at that time, the idea of a big group to me was like 10 people in a room. So when I walked into there, we had this gigantic big theater that was filled. I don't even know how many people. It just seemed like 50,000 to me, but I know it wasn't.
Did you have your red monster moment?
I had my total fear moment, you know. And so it was that was the scariest moment I ever had, but it was the coolest moment ever too, because after the fact, you got to sit outside and have everybody come by and go, hate the gnomes, love the gnomes, hate the this, love the this. And it was just like, I don't care. It's awesome. Let's go, man.
I must say, like, third edition is when I most became aware of, you know, the art and the people that was actually doing the art, the people that were actually creating the things behind that, the game. Prior to that point, I just played the game and didn't really care that much. Or I don't want to say I didn't care. I wasn't aware as much of it. I was just doing the thing, right? So, but when they announced third edition, they would put out every month in Dragon Magazine, like, the changes they wanted to make, and things they wanted to do. And like, I couldn't wait until the next month to see what was going to change and what were the new things. And I've always been the guy to drag my group kicking and screaming into the next edition. And they're like, but we have all these books. I'm like, so what? There's going to be new books. Let's go get them. And it's been a bit of a strain of our gaming group, but I have a strong personality and tend to win. So win out. So, like I said, we've played all the editions kicking and screaming, but third is always going to be really special to me. I would never want to really go back and play it, but it's always going to be special to me because we spent so much time playing in that system.
Yeah, I mean, they're all special to me. I have a love for, I hate the whole term edition wars, because for me, honestly, I love every single one. I mean, I started playing D&D with handwritten notes from Gary Gygax about his original system. I mean, that was what I got started in, so it wasn't even, I didn't even have a printed product at the time. So the idea of original D&D, or first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whichever the case it is, I love them all for very different reasons. Some things are better for theater of the mind, some things are better for tactical strategy. So I pick whichever ones, depending on what the groups I'm playing with and what they'd get off on. So I love them all. But from a rich visual idea, third edition was my favorite. I mean, it was always fun because I had that crossroads you play with. You've got the guys who just love the visual idea of third edition with all the, the tome-like quality of the books. And then I'd have all the nerd lawyers who would be like, it makes it hard to read and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, yeah, I got it. So they were both cool. But again, it was, as an art guy, man, third edition blew me away. I mean, just the art and the look of the books, and Henry with doing the actual sculptures for the covers. It was just cool stuff.
Yeah, for like recently, I had one of my biggest like nerd out moments, and that was when we got to have Monty Cook on the show and do an interview with Monty Cook, which was in itself was amazing. But to actually have Sean K. Reynolds hand you off to Monty Cook, I was like, I can't believe this.
Sean's a fun guy too. I loved working with Sean. He always made me laugh.
So, and that's kind of been like the cool thing about doing these live chats is I'm finally getting to meet these people, and I'm learning a lot more about the industry as well. Where before I would just enjoy the game. So it just takes the enjoyment of my hobby to the next level.
Yeah, I get that.
And and I think the people, watching, they also enjoy that a lot too, getting more interaction and seeing some of the behind the scenes things and the people. The next step is I got to hunt down the folks over at Wizards of the Coast, but they're a little elusive.
They're a little harder to get past the PR screen.
Yeah, but apparently I'm getting closer by going to events and finding them while they're drunk.
That makes now you're just making the PR guys even that much more nervous.
Yeah. Although it's funny because I got to meet Chris Lindsay at Origins, and I did catch him towards the end of the night after he'd been hanging out at the bar for a while. But I'll tell you, man, he's programmed hardcore with the responses.
Yeah.
They're like, every once in a while I get a good one, but they're almost like, it's almost like there's like the PR button in there.
Well, we actually, I'm going to tell on them a little bit, but they actually would send us through media training. So they'd sit here and say, these are the types of questions you're going to have. These are the types of answers you can give. And, you know, and so it was, I was terrible at it because I always failed media training, and they were always like, you know, we love you, John, but we need to keep you away from cameras. You know, I'm also terrible at dropping F-bombs and stuff like that. Jeremy Jarvis is even worse, but I'm not very good at it myself. But so, you know, you kind of get it programmed into you after a while. I mean, you can even have a few beers and be like, yep, that's question number 6. Here's the answer, you know.
So in my mind, it came, I actually heard media boot camp.
Yes, kind of like media boot camp. Yeah.
Complete with drill instructors.
Yes.
Well, you know, it must have worked because we've been chatting for over, you know, half an hour now, and I haven't heard a single F-bomb yet. I'm working very well. Well, we shoot for like a PG-13, and you know, we've been known to drop a few F-bombs along the way.
I talk like a sailor. I tend to drop a lot of them, and my team's always going, John, tone it down. And I'm like, sorry. Okay.
Well, I was doing heavy construction from this, before this, so you can imagine the language that I'm normally used to. So, you know, working at Watts, playing D&D, being a fan. So, did you then got to actually game? I imagine with these guys you had been kind of like growing up with.
Oh yeah, that was fun. So I mean, especially like 5th edition was the best one. I mean, because 5th edition, we play tested the crap out of that one, both inside and then also the public play test as well. But we did a lot of play testing inside, which was really great because the team was really open to lots of feedback. So we just play and play and play and play. And we did a lot of play at work, and we called it research, but we did a lot of play at work, and it was always fun. The guys, especially for 4th edition, they hated me because I was the king of making stuff broken. And so they would usually have me, I would have a spreadsheet and going, I'm playing a barbarian who's raging. And every time I click this button, it goes into rage mode and all my stats change. And they'd just be like, oh God, I hate you, John. They loved playing with me, but they hated playing with me at the same time because I would just always play broken characters and break the snot out of the systems. But I was a lot of fun to play with too. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. We got, you know, we always had the creative team always had a game going. We always got into lots of games with the R&D guys as well too. And you know, my favorite thing was, you know, stealing little bits of paper off of Chris Perkins's desk and learning about the new thing he was going to be torturing people with in the next week, and then putting it back and giggling when I heard about the game because I already knew it was going to happen. So it was fun.
That's awesome. I must say 5th edition is my favorite edition, but mainly because it seems like I don't know how they did it, but they somehow just picked all the best parts, according to me, from each system and put it in the 5A.
Well, that was the intent. I mean, Mike Merle spent the whole team, not just Mike, but the whole team. They spent a lot of time trying to say, I mean, everything from even when we were looking at stuff from the art side, it was like, you know, which of the monsters are the most popular? Which are, you know, why are they most effective to the game? What makes sense in canon? You know, and they tried to bring all this stuff together from all the different editions and all the different, you know, worlds and say, you know, how do we make this into a cohesive whole so it becomes really cool and fun? And that was, I mean, that was the whole intent behind 5th. And for the most part, I think they were super effective in that, you know, because when I do play 5th, I feel like I've got little dashes of all the different systems together. So.
And just like you, I also don't really like edition wars. Like I have my favorites and my preferences, but that's all. And that's all they are. Yeah. I don't think it's better or worse. It's just, this is what I like to play. Or if a group of friends are playing something that maybe isn't my favorite, I would still play it because I like playing with those people. I just wouldn't maybe run that system and be like, all right, someone else has got to run this, but I'll jump in the game. Sure. Why not?
Exactly. Yeah.
So we got some questions flowing in here.
Yeah.
I'll throw them out there. Chris, so he wants to know if you were more were involved with the print production of manuals any influence in selecting illustrators?
So yes. So when I was doing art direction and creative direction for D&D, especially when I was doing the creative direction, I pretty much set the tone for the visual side of the game. So me and my art directors, we would pick all the illustrators. We would work with all the illustrators, get all the art. We would do all the graphic design for the illustrations. We would work with R&D guys to sit here and balance budgets between, you know, I've only got X amount of dollars, but they want X amount of art, and trying to figure out how to make all that work and do the best we can for the publication and at the same time meet corporate goals from a budgetary standpoint. So yeah, the joke was half the time that my job was about going out and finding new artists. So I would spend a lot of time going to conventions, surfing online. You know, I created ArtOrder. We were talking about this earlier, but ArtOrder started out of that idea of I was getting ready to go to Gen Con in about 10 years ago, 2008, 2007. And I was getting ready to go to Gen Con. And I was like, hey, I'm going to Gen Con. I want to meet illustrators. Ask, you know, hook up, let's ask questions. And so ArtOrder became the place where I answered questions from the illustration community. And it was where I found most of my new illustrators for D&D at. And we would have a lot of fun bringing in new illustrators, mentoring them, growing them, teaching them, getting them to be really amazing. Well, they were already amazing, but becoming even more amazing and more professional. And then Jeremy Jarvis from Magic would swing in behind me and grab their paperwork off my desk and go running off laughing gleefully and steal them and take them over to Magic. So that was how my work with illustration often went around D&D. So yeah, I had a lot to do with the development of all the print products and also all the illustration.
I would real quick say hello to Crystal Sully, who's in the chat.
Well, hello, Crystal.
She's an amazing artist. I don't know if you're aware of her or not. If not, you should be.
I am. She's one of my mentees, and she killed it with her latest Kickstarter.
Yeah, we actually got to launch that live on here, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that was actually the first time we did something like that, and you know, it seemed like it worked out good for her. It was a lot of fun for us to do, and it, you know, it was an amazing Kickstarter. I can't wait to get my art book.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Crystal. I'm going to see her at AlexCon in October, so it'd be great to catch up with her again. Which is hysterical because we live in the same damn town, and yet we have to connect with each other at conventions.
Yeah, I can definitely get with that. But it means you guys are both busy and working, so that's good, right?
Yeah, good.
And it could be worse. You guys could have like regular muggle jobs.
Well, yeah. Sometimes I still feel like I have a muggle job, not as much as I used to, but. Yeah.
Well, you have the muggle world, I guess, that intrudes upon what you do.
True.
Let's see, Kyle. Out of every Wizards brand, which do you feel has your favorite style of art currently?
Currently, oh man, that's a tough one.
So much good stuff. Even if like you don't like Magic the Gathering, the art is freaking amazing.
It is. Well, you know, the thing I love about Magic too, is that Jeremy Jarvis, who's the creative director for that, does an amazing job. Actually, I'm not sure if that's his title now, but something like that. He does an amazing job there constantly. They always try and do very contemporary fantasy realism, as he likes to call it, but they have a great way of each set bringing out, you know, slightly different vibes and highlighting certain artists. And so the thing I love about Magic is it always feels kind of fresh. So that's super cool. You know, the drive we were starting to do before I left with 5th edition was the idea of going back to old school fantasy and having some, you know, real fun and bringing the world back into stuff. And that original direction we were trying to go with was something that really got me excited and really got me pumped. I'm the old school guy who started out, you know, looking at original D&D and, you know, opening the pictures and copying the pictures myself and drawing them, you know, and being totally stoked by all the artists. And I've always been the freak for all the D&D artists throughout the years. So I will always have a bit of a soft spot for that brand, no matter what they did. I think they could probably totally screw it up, and I'd be like, yeah, I still love D&D. So,
well, you know, it's like supporting your team, right?
I guess. I mean, it's really more supporting my passion. I mean, I have a love, and it is still my favorite brand. You know, is D&D. I mean, oh, I can't talk about that yet. Never mind. I won't talk about that.
Yeah. Well, to kind of like speak to that, like if someone asked me, is D&D the best role-playing game out there? I would say no, but it's probably still my favorite. Like, there's certain innovations that are going to happen in anything, and D&D can't even touch some of those because they're, pardon me, because they're D&D. They have to be D&D.
Right. There's a lot of truth in that. I mean, you've got. I mean, it'd be one thing to say, we had actually talked about it at one point when we were in the D&D world was, what if we threw everything out that we knew was D&D and just sat here and said, screw it, and not worried about canon, and not worried about the past, not worried about history, created something completely new. Would that be D&D? And we were like, well, no, it'd have a D&D logo on it, but it wouldn't be D&D, and so there's a truth in that. You can't change what is the underlying core of what is D&D without breaking it. And so, can it sit here and suddenly decide that I'm going to get rid of the D6 and everything's going to be a D12 now? I don't know. You probably could, but it would just break what is inherently D&D, having shitloads of D6s and rolling them all over the place. So I don't know. Well,
the other thing too is like, you have to remember with D&D, right? We're not talking about setting the bar. The D&D is the bar.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that.
It is the chicken and the egg. So anything that comes after it, like they, in some ways, new role-playing games, they just have so much more freedom because they can literally, like you said, throw everything away and do whatever they want. Yeah. But at a certain point, once you begin moving beyond what we know as D&D, you're right. You can put a logo on it, but it's not D&D anymore. And I think the peasants will revolt.
I think they would revolt with lots of pitchforks and big bonfires, and yeah, it would be bad. But and then ultimately, I mean, and this is just Geek John, I would never want to do that. I don't want to lose my tie to the past. I don't want to lose my history. I mean, I have a 40-year history with this game. I don't want to just walk away from it and say, oh, there's nothing here anymore. I always have that, and I just want to keep it.
Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. So Catharsis asks, what sorts of influences did you try to bring to D&D art styles that were part of your experiences playing prior to becoming the director? And also, just for anyone joining us or just read the title, he's the former art director for Wizards of the Coast. So if you ask anything about anything present or going forward, it would not probably be appropriate. So
I probably wouldn't have the right answer for you anyway, but I guess the thing that I brought with me from my past. So I started my creative career as a photographer, and so I did a lot of photojournalism stuff. So I like to do a lot of storytelling with visual narrative. So when we were moving from 2nd edition to 3rd edition, that was one of the big things that we had talked about a lot, was going from just trying to do pictures of a thing to starting to have more visual narratives, start doing more storytelling through the imagery. And I think that was one of the things that we had a lot of fun with, both in 3rd, and as much as I got grief about it, was even in 4th edition too, because there was a love-hate relationship a lot of people had with Wayne Reynolds and his style. But one of the things I loved about Wayne Reynolds was he had a great visual narrative to his art style, because I could look and say, here's not just a fighter, but here's a fighter he's got a tankard hanging off his belt, so he just might have a little bit of a drinking problem. He's got some lipstick smudge on his thing, so he might be a little bit of a womanizer. And there was a lot of visual narrative that went into that, besides just, hey, what side, does he have a two-handed axe, or does he have a bastard sword, or does he, that kind of stuff. So that's the stuff I liked to bring into the art, bring into the storytelling, was that idea of, is it just a pretty picture? Is there a pretty picture that engages me and draws me into a story? And that was the thing I always loved to try and bring into the art for D&D.
And that, sir, is why you're an art director and I am not, because I just see a pretty picture. I'm like, there's no way I would ever notice a lipstick smudge on someone's collar.
Okay, well, there you go. But that's okay, because somebody did. Besides,
yeah,
hopefully.
And I'm sure that makes him so much happier that someone actually noticed the thing that he did.
True enough.
Bear with me as I sort through here a little bit. Also, at some point, I also want to get into Tiny Dragons because that's something you've got in the works.
Cool. One of the things I see, Zephyr or Zephys.
Zarif Gaming.
Thank you. I'm glad you can read better than I can. I love one of the things you asked about, does art ever inspire the lore? And that was one of the things that we would have often, most of D&D, again, because it's very based in lore, most of the art that we created was based out of the lore and didn't go the other way around. As we started going into newer stories, especially like in 5th edition, as we were, late 4th edition, early 5th edition, we started looking at new stories or looking to expand canon in a lot of ways. And then those were places where we would bring artists in, we would have concepting sessions, and we would actually try and create art that would help inspire the lore. Or would sit here and tell a new story that we weren't familiar with, or would depict a character in a different way than we were used to. When we were doing 3rd edition, one of the jokes was we had R&D would give us these very loose things. They were talking about, oh, we want this little creature that can shock people with electricity if they're not paying attention. And so we were concepting it around. We slid this concept past the guys in R&D, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! This is perfect! This is exactly what we wanted. This could be a great monster that we're going to bring into 5th edition." And we started laughing. We were like, "Yes, it's Pikachu. It's a little mouse that shocks people, so you can't really use it." So, occasionally we would play jokes on the R&D guys if they weren't paying attention to them.
That's awesome. Slipping in the other properties. So let's move into Tiny Dragons and that project now.
Okay. So Tiny Dragons. So for anybody who doesn't know, ArtOrder, I guess I was mentioning ArtOrder earlier. It's a brand of mine. It's a company that I started up. Started out initially as a blog just to help illustrators break into the industry, and this shifted through the years in a lot of different ways. For years, we did this thing called challenges, where I would post up a challenge and everybody would do art. They submit it in. This was one of the sneaky ways I found to sit here and find new illustrators for D&D, because I would get amazing art and be like, "I've never heard of this guy. He's awesome. Let's sit here and hire him for D&D." So kind of on that inspiration, I started this one called Tiny Dragons, which was the idea of 2-3 years ago, I had done a challenge where it was little 3x3 paintings. Everybody could do a little 3x3 painting. We took it to Spectrum Live Art in Kansas City and sold tons of them for the artists, and the artists got the money out of it. And it was a lot of fun. One of my printers sent me a book the other day, and it was this little 3x3 book about Iceland. And I was like, "I love this book. This is an awesome little book." And I said, "Hey, I want to do a book about tiny dragons." So I put out the call, said, "I'm going to do a Tiny Dragon challenge. Anybody who's interested on it, here's all the details on the ArtOrder website, which is theartorder.com, by the way. If you go into the work in progress tab, it's got the projects that we're doing right now, both the Mark Mulcahy Snowman card collection that we got on Kickstarter right now, which is very fun, and then the Tiny Dragons. And so people have just been submitting Tiny Dragons, and I've been posting them up on Instagram and Facebook and fun stuff so people can keep an eye on it. It's doing so well. Originally, it was the idea of I was going to just do kind of a children's book, a little small children's book. But so many people are getting into it and doing different stuff. I mean, Dave Dorman threw me one, which was not a cute little dragon. It was a very vicious, serious dragon. And I was looking at it going, I'm getting a lot of these. So I'm getting a mix of really cute, fun ones that are more kid-oriented and then more serious, adult-oriented ones. So we keep tracking the way we're going for over the next month and a half while we still have a deadline, I think I'm going to come out with 2 books, one which is called Tiny Dragons, and then one which could be Not So Tiny Dragons. And so the Tiny Dragons will be the white, little likable, fluffy, whimsical one, and the Not So Tiny Dragons will be the more serious, aggressive dragons. So we'll have 2 books that'll be on Kickstarter at the same time.
That'll be that'll be really cool. I know my brother's actually working on something for that.
Awesome, good. It's fun. The thing I loved about the challenges is I would get everything from professional artists, big names, like I said, Dave Dorman, who've been in the industry for 30-40 years, to I would get 6-year-old and 8-year-old guys who would send me their drawings, you know, and sometimes those things, while the skill level might not be there, the passion of the drawing and the art was there. And so I take everybody's submission very seriously, you know, and I don't care whether you're a first time beginner or been around for 40 years. I'm gonna look at every piece and pump them up. You know, half the people that I've been throwing up onto the Instagram site where you can see all the dragons, half the folks I've never even met before. This is the first time I've ever heard their name. So it's been a blast to see new talent out there, see new styles, lots of different art styles that are coming in, you know, everything from flat graphic style to very comic to manga to realistic to everything in between. It's been really cool.
Well, I suspect you're going to get a three-dimensional piece.
I have gotten a couple of three-dimensionals. Today I even got a couple of submissions for folks who were doing plush, little dragon plushes, and sent me those. And I was like, those are awesome. Send me some other views so I can interpost those too. That's cool.
That is nice. That's how my brother works, three-dimensionally.
Yeah, cool.
It's his style is very similar. So he builds like dioramas and sets and then photographs them.
Well, Joseph Wu, he's a very well-known origamist. I think that's the term you use for guys who make origami. Years ago, when I was doing the challenges, he would started submitting origami as stuff to me. You know, we had an owlbear challenge one time where we had a bunch of owlbears, and everybody got to revision what they thought an owlbear was, and he sent me some origami owlbears, which I actually have in my office. And it was the coolest thing ever. And everybody's like, that's not an illustration. I was like, I know, but it's the coolest origami owlbear you will ever see in your life. So
that is pretty awesome.
Yes.
Also, I just quick hi to Brian Collins in the chat as well. He is a company called Creature Curators or Creature Curations, and he actually builds like trophy heads for monsters.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
And yeah, if you're he does most of the shows now, so that's where we found him. And his stuff is just amazing. Usually, you'll be walking down the aisle and you'll see like this weird monster's head like poking out in the aisle, and it's probably his booth.
That's cool. I have to check him out too.
And he's got a really cool story about how he makes his stuff, because he's basically started making this stuff with his kid who's like, I don't know, I think when he started, his kid was like 4 and he's like 7 now. And so the actual designer for the monsters is his son, and then he just makes the thing.
Oh, that's fun though. I like that.
Yeah, they're going to be doing a Kickstarter for Fate. So he's working on a Fate campaign based around his world, and which is based largely around all these creatures that he sculpts.
Oh, that sounds super awesome. Love to check that out.
Yeah, he said that he quoted to do a full-size owlbear.
Yeah.
And I think he said like $6,000. I'm like, wow, that seems really cheap for a full-size owlbear.
It does seem really cheap for a full-size owlbear, yes.
But I'm definitely waiting to see that. That'll be awesome. I don't know how it will stack up against the origami owlbears, but
well, it was crazy. Joseph actually was in Seattle at one time and stopped in. He came in and did a whole creative day with me and the creative team, and we just sat down and he showed us how to do origami, and we were playing with origami, and we just spent the whole day doing origami. That was probably the funnest time I had at D&D. So
that reminds me of a kid. I don't even remember what the show was my dad had taken to us to, and there was a guy making paper ninjas.
Yeah.
Like the cutout silhouettes, but all that stuff is super fun. So did you have to struggle and restrain yourself when you get those, like, get the art from the 8 and 9-year-olds from like printing it out and putting it on your refrigerator?
No, I often just did it because I wanted to. Some of my favorite, I mean, especially when I was at D&D, I used to get tons of fan mail, and it was often from young kids who were, cool age or younger, and they sit here and go, last night my dad beat so and so in this thing, and I drew a picture of the war, and and they'll send me these pictures, and they're like, I'll just put them up in my booth or take them home and put them up on my fridge at home, because that was just the coolest thing ever, to see that childlike exuberance that I have about the brand being exhibited out, and I I play, my son plays, and my grandson will probably be playing in a few years because it's the whole geek family thing. You know, when I was, I don't know, I was probably in my 30s or something, I handed off all my D&D stuff to my cousins at the time. And they took it and kept it and nourished it and filled the box up with more stuff with I Spy and this and that, and, you know, Spy versus Spy and everything else. And then when my son hit like 15, they took the whole box and handed it to him and said, okay, your dad gave it to us, now we're giving it to you. And so then he's been growing the box, and he's got a giant room of D&D at his place. And just, you know, his whole thing is, Lucas will grow up to be a D&D player. That's how it's going to be. So, you know, I like to see how the kids interact with the brand.
So for the parents out there, what do you think the key is to getting your kids into RPGs?
I think kids are about storytelling. I mean, and if you get them invested in the stories and letting them have fun and take the hard math and stuff out of it, or make the math secondary, that's the thing that's always worked best. I mean, Shelley Masnoble had taken D&D and kind of streamlined it down to sit here and do some girls teaching with it. You know, I wanted to sit here and try and bring more young girls into the thing. And I love the little, very light system she had brought up with, and it's really a lot of storytelling. And I snagged it and took it and used it for my neighborhood games with the kids, because it became more about the storytelling aspect of the game and less about the number crunch. And they loved it. And, you know, then you start bringing the math into it, and then they just think it's cool, because then they start mastering it, and they get a lot of fun out of mastering it. And that was what's always worked with me, bringing kids into it. Because I was the guy who'd be like, I'd have my two of my kids in it, but then we'd have 6 or 7 other neighborhood kids who had no touch base with D&D before, but they came and they loved it, and they'd be screaming and hollering and jumping up and down and doing crazy things like doing ninja jumps off the top of bookshelves. And they would go home and tell all their parents all about this, and their parents would be like, you're a crazy man for having our kids over there doing all that stuff. And I was like, no, it's all in the game. They weren't really doing that. That's just what they're doing. It's fun. So,
well, kids are playing D&D. They don't have time to do other things that are going to get them in trouble.
Yeah, that's probably true too. I was still good at doing both. I played D&D and got in trouble, so I guess I was extra special.
Well, me too, but I'm trying to sell it for the people out there. Well, you know, you probably grew up in the, the 70s, 80s, so
60s, but anyway.
Is it? Well, okay, it's a different time.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. We do a roll call here, so I want to kick that off real fast, guys. Where are you weighing in from? We got like 50 plus people hanging with us in the chat, which is really cool. Lavoyer asked a question of, what programs do you recommend for art design on computers, rendering and editing?
Well, depends. I guess a lot depends what you're going to be doing. I mean, most of the work that we did Photoshop, Illustrator. If we're doing 3D stuff, we'll use why did my brain just die on me? We'll use Maya. We'll use help me. Anyways, Deform. We'll use a number of things for rendering. Like I said, my brain is just dying on me now. Key something.
I didn't think that would be the stumper question of today.
I'm sure it was. I'm horrible at names. My kids will tell you that too, but I'm terrible at names.
It's like, it's on my computer. I just click it, and
I know what the icon looks like to sit here and hit on it.
That's it. I'm going to jump in the chat now and get to our roll call. We got Aaron in Seattle. We got Todd in Dallas, Lincoln in Sweden. We got Michigan in the house with Tabletop Gaming with Juice, Minnesota with Evil Silly Putty, Athens, Greece with Hercules 735. We got Portland with Mark. We've got Michael in Canada. We've got Hooten in Los Angeles, New Orleans with Jay. Chris is in Port Attic, Washington. Crystal Sully is in Colorado. We got Carthus at North Cali, I mean. We've got Sweden with Tristan Ross. We've got Jinker GM is in Atlanta, Brooklyn, New York in the house with Chris. Paul is in Pittsburgh. Cannibal Loco is in Argentina, Wisconsin with Scott. We got John in Lincoln, Nebraska. We got Ranger Roy in Missouri. So we got people weighing in from all over the place, which is, again, my favorite part of doing this.
Yeah, awesome. I'll be in Sweden in 2 weeks too. So there you go. Say hi to
Oh,
Sweden.
nice. We've got like 5 fans over there. You should look for them. They're great. We've had a couple of chats where we got like 3 people from Sweden here and in the chat. And I'm like, how does that even happen?
Very cool.
Yeah, so it is fun to see where the hobby's going and the directions that everything's taking now, and the fact that, like, I guess I'll ask you pros this question: Did you ever imagine that playing D&D would ever become basically a spectator sport?
I never did. I mean, the idea. I mean, well, first of all, the internet wasn't even around, so we had no idea how the internet would affect it. But you know, the notion of Chris Perkins doing a game at PAX and having it televised and streamed all over the world and people checking it out. And I mean, when I was just over talking to my IT guy, he was watching the latest PAX stream, and I'm like, you know, who would have thought this stuff? But it goes back to the thing of, it's great storytelling. It's fun. It's, you know, it's Game of Thrones without all the special effects and the big budget. It's people die, people live, people do outrageous, crazy things. That's the cool thing about it, and that's why I love D&D, is all the storytelling.
When we first got started with just doing videos and putting them up, like most of us, we don't really watch streams, but we knew people enjoy them. So I'm like, I guess we'll film our games and put them up. And and it's surprising, how many of them get watched and how many views they get. But I would never thought of D&D as entertainment, aside from actually playing the game. Yeah. Let alone like all this stuff is, sprung up with it. I mean, you have commentary basically like we do, and you got people streaming it. Twitch is exploding with, all kinds of different D&D streams and other role-playing games as well. This whole hobby is just going crazy in new directions, and it's awesome because it's just going to keep expanding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the internet has really brought a lot to it. I mean, the thing that my biggest complaint was, when I grew up in New Orleans, and when I left, so shout out to the guy down in New Orleans. But when I moved from New Orleans, I lost most of my gaming folks, and so it's awesome now to have applications and programs and platforms out there where I can hook up and play D&D with people all around the world at one time on the same game table. I mean, who would have ever thought that was going to be possible? It reunites the party in a lot of cases, and you get to have relationships with people that you had lost for 10, 15 years, because now you can get back around on a D&D table just virtually. And that's amazing. That's super cool.
One of the things I'm finding that is happening a lot is, guys my age, guys your age, who were in the hobby and they played when they were in high school, or they played when they were in college, or maybe in their early 20s, but then like gave it up for adulting.
Yeah. And
they're coming back.
Yes.
We hear that all the time now.
And I saw that in my own life when my kids started growing up. Well, I had the excuse of I worked on it every day, so I didn't have to get out of it. But even in my own outside life, I stopped playing as much on the outside. I played a lot at work and with the work teams and stuff, but I didn't play it on the outside as much until my kids started to get to that 12, 13, 14-year-old range. And I was like, hey, you're old enough, you'll probably love this. And we brought them back into it. And so, engaging them in D&D re-engaged me with D&D. And in 5, 6 years, I'll probably get to do it again now with my grandson and say, now I get to engage him in D&D. So it'll be fun.
We slowed down, but we never really stopped playing.
Yeah. Good.
And then, once we launched Nerdarchy, it's like, well, now it's like part of our job. It's like, I feel like exactly. I feel like we've perpetuated the greatest scam on our wives ever. And we're like, well, we have to go to work, and work is like D&D. So it's so cool that we did that. But the coolest thing is when my wife goes, oh, well, I understand. I'm not, I understand it's part of your job. and it was something about doing a game or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, when it's one thing for me to call it work, but when she actually calls it work,
yeah,
I feel like the world's greatest charlatan.
Well, in my current job at Think Geek, I have to do a lot of stuff around video games, and my son thought that was really cool because he was like, "Oh, you get to play video games?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "But you don't want to watch me play video games when I'm playing for work." She's like, "Why?" And I was like, "So he came down and watched me. We're doing the latest Fallout, and I'm playing for a minute and stopping. I'm writing stuff down and I'm taking pictures of the screen and this." And he goes, "You're not playing." I said, "I know. I really am working. I'm researching it." He goes, "That doesn't seem fun at all." I was like, "No, it's not. Sorry."
This is what you need. You need an assistant that does the note taking. You can dictate the notes to while you play.
I know. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Or hey, maybe some speech to text application going on while you're playing.
There you go. I just need a good intern. That's what I need.
There you go. That's definitely a way to go. So the Think Geek thing, how long have you been with those guys now?
So when I left D&D, I came to Colorado to work for a company called Treehouse Brand Stores. And basically what we did was we did the white label official stores for PlayStation, Bethesda, Bioware, Gearbox, and a couple other brands. About 3 years ago, we got acquired by Think Geek because they wanted to have access to all our video game licenses. So
you got adopted, essentially?
I got adopted, yeah. And then, 2 years ago, we got bought. The big joke was every time I get new cards, we got acquired by somebody else. So since we got bought by GameStop now. So since I got bought by them, I refuse to get another set of cards because I don't want to sit here and see if we get acquired again. So
you did it. It's your fault.
My fault, yes.
Nice. Now we were talking off air a little bit about how, well, a couple things. One, how we know each other is Bryan Stillman, and he's working on the Art of D&D, Eye of the Beholder, and you're telling me about your experience with doing an interview for that a little bit.
The marathon interview.
Yeah, you said 10 hours. Is it really an interview at that point? That's an interrogation.
No, it was, oh God, it was just, first of all, Bryan's a great interviewer. He just asks amazing questions, and I will talk forever, which is part of the problem there too. But he would ask great questions, and I'd answer it, and that would just spur him on to 2 or 3 more questions, and we just kept going and going and going until we were killing batteries and on cameras and stuff. It was great. I mean, it was literally, my wife walked in about halfway through the interview, and that to me was probably the coolest thing ever, because she sat there and watched the interview for the second half of the day and was like, she said, I didn't know all this stuff. She knew I worked for D&D. She knew, all the stories about the products and all that kind of stuff, but she never really heard me talk about, really deep down heart stuff about my love for D&D and love for the artists and the creative and everything. And she said at the end of it, she's like, I felt like I got a whole new view of my husband. And that was how that interview was. By the end of you used the word cathartic, but by the end of that interview, it was the most liberating, freeing, depressing at the same time, recognizing that, I wasn't there anymore, but just having the gratitude of being able to work with some of the most amazing people, both on the design side and the art side of that industry. It's awesome. It's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I'm dying for them to finish the documentary so I can finish watching myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I suspect some of that isn't going to make it into the.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of it's not going to, but that's okay.
So, I know Bryan that's involved and his partner, Seth, and Kelly as well. And she's doing the editing side of it. And every time I talk to one of those guys, they're like, we got to talk to so-and-so. And if Kelly's there, I look over, I'm like, you want to stab them, don't you?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was Seth or Kelly. We were out, went to dinner a month or so ago, and they were talking about they want to go see so-and-so next. And I was just like, is it ever going to be done? Are you guys ever going to be finished? And they're like, yes, soon. We will finish soon. I'm like,
you're going to watch yourself, and your 10 hours is going to be like a minute.
Oh yeah, at least.
With all the people that they brought in. I was there when they interviewed Satine Phoenix and Rudy Rutenberg for it as well. So they are literally like interviewing everybody.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I love the little trailer they had created for it. It was great to just see, you know, so many faces that I know and so many personalities that I know just in that 30-second snippet. It was very exciting.
I'd actually got to watch the trailer back in January. We had gone to a cruise called Fantasy. It was a Comic-Con cruise, basically.
Okay, that sounds totally cool. I want to go on one of those.
Yeah, it was a good time. I don't know how, but we somehow finagled a cabin to give away.
Yeah.
So we gave away a cabin, and we're going to do the thing, and we're like doing like I guess we talked about this a little bit too. Is like whenever you do a con or a convention, you're working. So we're like, all right. Plus, I have to justify writing off this cruise anyway. So I'm checking out like who's going to be on board, and you know, I saw Bryan Stillman. I'm like, oh, we should talk to him. He seems like that seems like a good person. That's right up our alley, D&D. And like the first day that we get on the cruise, we actually sat down to grab something to eat. I had brought my family with me, and I'm kind of like not eavesdropping, but I can hear the conversation going on at the table like next to us. And I look over and I'm like, that's Bryan Stillman, isn't it? So I waited till they were done, and I was like, went up and introduced myself. And, you know, we got to meet him on the cruise and got to know him a little bit. He played in one of the games one of my partners ran. We got to check out his the piece he did on the documentary coming up. So it's been really cool. And then it turns out he actually isn't that far from us. He lives in New York, and we're in Jersey. So it's only like a couple hours up the turnpike. And but it turns out, like I was saying before, Bryan Stillman knows everybody from doing these documentaries.
He does. He knows every single person in the world. It's crazy.
And he's just got so many great stories. And I guess I was circling back to the fact that he's just such a fun guy to talk to and hang out with. I was a little disappointed at Gen Con. He had invited me to play in one of his games. And he's like, I've got 2 spots, and there was 3 of us. And I'm like, I can't leave one of the guys out. So, you know, I'm going to have to bail, Brian. Yeah. But that is the cool thing now about going to these workations, is like getting to hang out with these people that we only talk to online pretty much now.
Yeah, workations. I like that term. I'm going to steal it. It's
all yours. I'm pretty sure I did not invent it.
Okay.
You have to do, what's that?
Not a David TM behind it.
Oh yeah, there you go. So you have to do a lot of conventions for work. Do you have any upcoming cons?
I'm going to one of my favorites, big art convention. It's called LuxCon. It's in October. It's in Reading, PA this year, I think. It's a great one. It was, I think this is number 10. I think it is. But anyways, it was started by some collectors, art collectors. They decided they got tired of going everywhere to buy art, so they decided to invite all their favorite artists and their favorite collectors to come to there. So it started off with the 50 best traditional illustrators, and it's grown way beyond that now. It's a really great place to go if you're a fan of, you know, if you love contemporary fantasy art. They've got all the big names there. Guys from all over the world come into it. It's a great show. They've got a great educational track. I'm actually going to be doing a talk there with Margot Atwater from Kickstarter. We're going to do a talk about doing Kickstarters. I'm also hooking up with Seth. Seth and I are going to be doing a law and the ArtOrder talk to sit here and talk about, you know, the art and art direction of the industry and how to keep illustrators out of trouble. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think my brother goes to that one occasionally. He graduated from UA, in Philadelphia, and someone recently mentioned that one to me too, and I think it was probably Brian, because he's such a fan of art and collects, you know, everything. Well, like, we're talking about that, like his collection of toys is like better than anybody's.
Yeah, he's gonna be at IX as well this year. So
when is that one going down?
October. Hang on a second. Where's my phone? I don't know. It's
all right. October's close enough. I can.
It's like I think it's the third weekend of October.
Yeah, I've got one left for the year, and that's PAX Unplugged. I don't think I can squeeze any more in this year.
Yeah, boy, I tell you what, I just learned about PAX Unplugged, and I was like, oh, that sounds exciting, and I can't fit it into my schedule. I'd love to go to the game. That one.
Yeah, I'm going to finish out the season with that one, and I'm pretty happy. I mean, plus people are asking if we were going to be at that one, and I was kind of like, it's in Philadelphia. It's literally in our backyard, so I don't think we can justify not going to that one.
That would be bad.
It's probably going to be a bigger pain in the ass than actually traveling to one, though, because it's like, 30, 40 minutes away. Yeah. So we're probably not going to stay. We're going to have to commute back and forth.
Well, that, and you'll say, well, it's just a car ride. I'll take a whole bunch of stuff, and you'll end up taking more than you would take if you had to fly.
Yeah. There's that too. Yeah. And then, we end up with, the recording stuff, and then it's like, how close are we going to be? But this year might be a little bit easier because, this con might be a little bit easier. We're supposed to be beard boothing. So for Open Legend.
Beard boothing?
Yeah. Well,
booth babe, but.
Yeah, instead of a booth babe, he's going to have booth beards.
Got it. Okay. I hadn't heard that term before either.
Oh, I think that one I may have made up, or I might have stolen from Crystal Sully, one or the other.
Well, that might be because, her boy does the beard boothing too.
Yes, that's exactly it. So I'm not sure, and my memory isn't the greatest. So sometimes, things creep in, and I don't know where they came from.
Yeah.
And it turns out I just ripped it off from someplace. So, but yeah, Open Legend Brian Feaster had invited us to come hang out at his booth and help him out. So we'll be there at PAX doing that. This should be a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, enjoy it, man.
And then I know we do this collab game, Save or Dice, and I know Cody, who was one of the ones that put it together. He's trying to convince us all to hit PAX South because that's local to him.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's going to be really close. I don't know to PAX Unplugged. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit another one in a couple months. I have to figure out my con schedule for next year.
It's always insane. That's the way it works.
It is. I also want to hit Dragon Con, but I couldn't squeeze that one in this year either.
Dragon Con's fun. I haven't been there for a number of years, but back in my D&D days, we used to go there quite a bit. It was always fun. I enjoyed Dragon Con.
I think I want to go there and stalk Jim Butcher because I think he usually goes to Dragon Con.
Yeah, I think so.
Now he's been forewarned, so I feel like it's fair.
Makes your stalking more difficult. You have to do a +1.
Yeah. So it's about that time, and I just want to thank you for being on with me today, John. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man. It was fun. Thank you.
It's good talking to you.
Questions.
What's that?
I said, sorry, we didn't get to the rest of your questions.
That's okay. That happens. They're used to it. I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us today in the chat. Really appreciate it. So, guys, until next time, stay nerdy.